This is the tape that gives you a method that increases your intimacy with all of your loved ones. In fact, it's a tape that I've been looking forward to giving you because it goes further to explain that anger that we hide in our heart and don't even realize it comes out of frustration, out of fear, out of hurt feelings. All those little things that build up inside of us are like little embers that grow, and it can become a lava flow in our relationship with people, which actually burns those relationships, and we can't have them like we want to. So I'm going to give you several methods where you can begin to drain out this anger on a daily basis. It will give you more intimacy with all of your loved ones. You'll see. Thank you. Right. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. I'm ready to go. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Wow, this is the second half of the whole area of forgiveness. And I think based on the first half, I wanted to paint a picture where you were so excited about saying, I got to get that stuff out of me. I got to get anger out of me. So, and anger left inside does a lot of damage, as we said, and it stays forever. And it's like it can last for a long time. It's like the plumber who died and went to heaven, and when he got up to the gate, the gatekeeper said, "Where have you been? We called you a week ago." So this, it can last a long time. Or like the guy who came up to me and he seemed real happy, and I said, why are you so happy? He says, well, I'm just coming back from a pleasure trip. I said, oh, really? I said, what happened? He said, I just took my mother-in-law to the airport a day early. And my wife's still angry, he said. So there's always the need to seek forgiveness, to learn the concept of forgiveness so that we can get this anger out of us. Remember, we said that one of the big problems with anger is that it's like the person who abused us or offended us, it's like we play this tape in our head over and over again if we're not forgiving, and so the abuser just keeps abusing us. It's kind of like a video tape, you know, you put it in the player. Well, what this session is about is how to push the eject button, pull that thing right out, so that the thing it stops tormenting us. And little by little, we start getting our life back and our feeling back and start getting back in the light. We get our capacity to grow. All the negative things start falling off, which is exactly what forgiveness is. And that's what this session is about. So I want to start with a sort of a heavy example, a real serious example, because I think that if we could do it in this situation or situations like this, then for a lot of us, you know, if we're not getting quite this amount of abuse, we can say, well, if that person could do it, then I can do it for what's happening to me. Because I want you to be excited about getting forgiveness into your life and experiencing it so we get that anger drained out. Years ago, I had a college girl come to me, and we'll call her Linda. And she came and was real discouraged. You could see she was losing energy. She was kind of depressed. A lot of the symptoms that we talked about that are present in anger. So I knew she had a lot of anger. She came to my office and said, I need to talk to somebody. I can't go on like this. I'm just so miserable. So I asked her to explain what it is. She said, I'm really embarrassed. I've never told anyone, and I don't like telling anyone because I just know that somehow it's going to come back and affect me in the future. And I said, well, what is it? And I said, I'm here to help. I want to listen, whatever I can do. So she started through tears telling me how she had been sexually abused by her father. And she said it was over a period of years. And she said, I can't get over it. And it just so, wiped me out and destroyed so much about my life that I don't know what to do about it. I have to get help. Is there anything you can do to help me? So we started talking, and I started listening to the symptoms, and surely enough, she had all of the things we've talked about. And here's basically what was going on in this little girl's life and why she was really so affected negatively. And this is another reflection of what anger does to us and how it's really our friend telling us something about ourselves, but we have to do something as an individual to get this anger out. This is going to represent something that's very common, and we all know what it is. Your first name is?
Dean.
Dean. Okay, Dean. Let's pretend that I have to head for the airport right after this session, and that I talked to you ahead of time and I said, Dean, is there any way you could give me a ride to the airport? It's kind of a tight schedule. I need to get out of here. What do you say? I could call a cab, but it could be a complicated thing. And you say, yeah, that'd be fine. Or say that.
Yeah.
Okay, you'd be honored. Good. Okay, so I say, okay, great. So we finish the session. You and I get out here as soon as we can. We get in your car and we head towards the airport. You're not going that fast, and I'm a little nervous about that. But during the trip, the lights on your dash come on and start flicking. Okay, like this one up here. So we're going to say these are lights on your car dash or anybody's car dash. And so, and I am talking to you and you're talking to me, and I finally say, you know, Dean, I was just wondering, do those things mean anything? You know, the question. And you say, nah, they come on off and on. I think it's a short, actually. So it's not a serious deal. I say, well, because I wanted to, you know, kind of get home to my family, and I'd like to get there. So you sure you don't have to check it? Nah, don't worry about it. So they stay on, and they seem to get brighter, and I say, you know what, Dean? I mean, do you think? There's a service station. Woof, ooh. We could have stopped there. Ah, I told you, just relax. You're just talking away, and all of a sudden your engine goes, okay. It starts to cause a problem, and I hear it, and we're still going on. I say, Dean. You say, does this bother you? The light's on? I say, yeah, it bothers me because I'd like to make it to the airport. Hey, hand me that hammer in my glove compartment, okay? Now, oh. Now do you feel better? I say, Dean, I don't feel a lot better. There's still one on. As a matter of fact, it's not supposed to be on. It's still on. And she said, well, if it's still bothering you, then. A long life, okay? Now, do you feel better? And I say, no, I don't feel better, Dean. All of a sudden, your engine freezes up, and we pull off the side of the road. We're about 5 miles from the airport. You say, well, this is really strange. This has never happened before. I said, Dean, those lights were there for a purpose. We passed a couple of service stations. We could have stopped, you know, because let's go out and check the engine. There's no oil, Dean. I'm going to miss my flight. You say, oh, I'm really sorry. What were those lights there for? They were warning lights. Something's wrong. Every one of us has lights flashing on the dashboard of our life. And we can look at those lights. When they start flashing, see, each one of these represent, this one is fear, this one's frustration, and this one's hurt. Those things are going to reflect into anger. And I really mashed that one good, didn't I? And they're there for a purpose. They're letting us know that something is going wrong. But you know what a lot of us do? We stuff it. We don't even know that stuffing anger deep inside of us is going to be a problem someday. And as we saw in the last session, it's a major problem. It's a tornado ripping us up inside, causes terrific damage to us as well as our relationships. So I explained this to this college girl and said, Linda, is this what you want to go the rest of your life with all this stuff in you? And she said, no, I don't want that. I want to get this stuff out of my life. I want to see my life change. I want new life. And so I said, okay, let's go through these steps that helped me. It's just a series of them. They're not in any order. You could start the last one if you want. Some of them are going to untie in your life, maybe one knot at a time. Maybe there's others that are going to untie 5 and 6 knots at a time. I don't know how many knots it's going to, if I can get this tied, I don't know how many knots it's going to untie in your life. And each one of them may untie 3 or 4 knots. But the great thing about this is that forgiveness will untie your knots little by little. And even though maybe some of these steps you think to yourself, well, I don't know if I could do that. They're not that hard. But you say to yourself, I don't know. But as you begin to apply them, weeks go on and you'll say, you know what, I don't have that same feeling that I had before. That's because the knots are untying. And the anger can is shrinking. And it happens little by little. So let's go through some of these steps. and see which one that you could take and which one will be the most effective. Number one, first thing that I encourage people to do is to analyze and define exactly what this offense is and what you have actually lost. What's actually happening. And I'll show you how simple this is. We do everything in life for one of two reasons, or both. Just think of this. You're here today. Everything you do is for one of two reasons. Either it's desire for gain or fear of loss. You're doing everything for one of those two things, or a combination. So that's the basis of anger. Because either somebody's taking something away from me I don't want to lose, or they're denying something that I want to gain. I think I'm losing something. And that is the basis for anger, and that's why it comes into our life, because something is happening to us in our personal life. Well, that's exactly what happened to Linda. And so as we started to analyze this, we said, what did you actually lose? What's going on here? Just look at it, because if you can write it down and see it objectively, just seeing it begins to loosen the knot. So she said, well, and she said a number of things, but the two big ones that came out that we wrote down together is that she felt like her father took her childhood away from her, stole it, she lost it. But the worst pain was that her father took her future husband especially. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? She says, well, I can't date anybody. I don't feel free to date. I feel so unworthy because I feel like if I meet the right guy that I really like, as soon as he finds out what happened to me, I'm trash. There's nobody who's going to stay with me. Nobody's going to want me because I'm rubbish. I'm not worth anything. All those symptoms, keeping your distance, being in the dark, all those things, the depression, they were all part of her life. And I said, well, I want to write those things down because this will help you as you start forgiving your father. This will help you see how this falls off of your life. Because basically, as you'll see, her father actually didn't take her future. But in her mind, he did. And that's what's important. That's where the resentment is. So that was the same thing with me. When I was really angry towards this person that I discussed before, that person took a lot of things from me. Took some of my dignity, took my own future because I had liked my job that I was doing, and I felt like he took it away. I couldn't stay. And I had to take a job that I really didn't like, and I was discouraged over that. So there was tremendous anger. I thought, I'd finally got to the place in my life where I was where I wanted to be. And I couldn't stay because of the anger, and I was hacked over that and resentful. And I didn't like it at all. So I had to analyze it for myself, and it was a tremendous loss. Think of the things that somebody did to you that you're still grinding away and playing the little tape. What did they take from you? What did they deny you? Those are where that resentment lies. Now, this is kind of a parenthetical statement, kind of a sideline, but I think it's important. Each one of these steps that I'm going to talk about, how you, on your own, can get rid of your own anger. At the same time, anytime you want, you can reverse any of these points and use them to untie another person that you've offended. So you can reverse it anytime you want. That's really the ideal. Wouldn't it be great if somebody offended you and they came and analyzed what they'd taken from you, what they denied you, and actually came and admitted it and sought your forgiveness? Wouldn't that be great? So you can use any one of these steps just to reverse it. So it's a double dose here in this session. And my son was telling me that on his honeymoon, Greg and Aaron, they wanted to take this one particular hike, and he wanted to anyway, and she didn't. And so he got on her case and offended her, and she was angry, and they weren't speaking. This is honeymoon time. And so that's serious for a man especially. And so we started thinking immediately. And so they went to that Polynesian show over there, and she's not speaking to him, and he's not speaking. They're both, avoiding each other. Those symptoms of anger. And so he's thinking to himself, this is not a good thing. I'm going to analyze this thing. It's not a good thing that she stays angry with me. I've got to seek her forgiveness. I've got to start the process of her forgiving me so we can get this out and get back into harmony. I don't want this to stay a long time. So he's kind of, irritated a little bit, but he puts his arm around her and just held her gently. She wasn't real responsive. He thought, well, that's normal. Usually when they're angry, they're not responsive. So he holds her a little closer and he kind of pulls her over to him, and he's looking straight ahead. And so he's thinking, she's going to respond here. So he says, all right, I was wrong today. I know what I said was really offensive. And this woman said, I don't know what you did, but I'm not your wife. He actually had his arm around another person. And now, of course, Erin was really upset with him. She was on this side. But he said, I didn't even notice it. He said, maybe because I was so upset or whatever. But I said, all right, well, now, it started off as a deposit, wound up as a withdrawal. Anyway, you can use any of these to reverse it, which I really recommend. But in the first step, the first phase is just analyze what you lost. Okay, second thing you can do. Each one of these ties a knot. Second thing is to allow yourself, this is very important for forgiveness, to grieve your loss. Let yourself see what actually happened. You've written it down now, so the second thing is look at it, realize it's real. These people really did take something from you. This father, or former mate, or boss, or friend, they robbed me of something, or they denied me of something. Don't minimize it. They were wrong. Say the words, you slime bag. They were wrong. They didn't treat you with respect. They didn't respect your boundary, your own property line. They went over and they offended you, and you're angry. And it's okay to see those things and to grieve that loss for a period of time. When my brother died at 51 years of age, I'm 4 years younger, I was angry with my brother for several months. And it was a real interesting feeling. But my brother didn't like doctors. He was an angry person because my father, in his own anger, and out of his own anger can, my father had sprayed him many times. Sprayed the acid on my brother, and my brother had his own anger can. And so because of that, he was generally distrustful of people and sort of explosive at times. And when I would say to him, Ronnie, it's in our family. We've inherited this. You've got to have your cholesterol and your heart checked. And I don't like doctors, they rip you off and all that kind of stuff. And so he wouldn't go. If he finally had a heart attack, had to go. And he wouldn't do the things they told him to do. He figured, I'm strong, and died. And we were just getting close friends, and I was angry. And so it went on for a while until I had to forgive my brother, even though he wasn't there, and go through the same process. I grieved the loss of my brother for a long time. But that's part of the process of untying the knots. And just the grief all by itself, if you allow yourself. Because a lot of people won't grieve. They deny it. They try to be happy. Well, I'll get over this in a hurry. No, don't do that. Let yourself go for a while. Some serious offenses or serious losses, you can grieve up to 2 years. And that's part of the releasing of this anger. And I know how important it is. I had a woman one time who called me on the phone, and she said, Mr. Smalley, I have a very, very serious problem, and I'd like to see you if I could. She said, I'm in danger, and I need to talk to someone. And I went, ugh. I didn't know if I wanted to, in one sense. I said, all right. So she comes into the office, or we met at a place, and she said, okay. She said, I appreciate you meeting with me. She said, my husband, who's well known in this community, is doing something that's illegal. I can't live this way anymore. I am extremely angry for what he does and for what he does to me, and I have got to expose this so that I can get help myself. I can't live like this any longer. But I don't know what he's going to do to me or to you if you find out. I said, yeah, thanks a lot. It's probably part of the underworld or something, And I thought, oh, great. And she said, I just don't know what he's going to do. So I said, well, and she told me what he was doing and the situation, and I knew who he was, and I thought, well, maybe he will respond if we confront him. And so the two of us did confront him, and he did have a good response, which surprised me. Now, there was some resistance, some degrees of resistance initially, but then as it happened, he did respond, and we'll talk more about this in a minute. But she had to go through, and I helped her go through, a grieving process of realizing what she had lost, and what he was taking away from her, and what she was feeling. I helped her just bring it to the surface and analyze it. Now, it's not always possible to grieve everything, and I know that's true of me today. I'm not able to grieve everything that I want to grieve today. I can't anymore, because the broader these tapes go out around the world and the more the infomercials on television, it blocks my grieving process from time to time. As an example, my wife and I were on vacation. One of her favorite things is to stay in a hotel where the room is right on the beach side with the waves crashing and you can hear it at night. Leave the windows open and door and type of thing. And so I know that, so I'm going to be really special, and I call this hotel that we're going to, and I make reservations, and I have a confirmation that I get a room on the water. Okay, so I get there, and I go up to the counter, and I said, I'm just checking in, need to get my room, and she said, what kind of accommodation you want? I said, well, I made reservations, and I checked yesterday, because it's a surprise for my wife. I want that room right on the, she said, I'm sorry, those are all booked. There's people in those now. I said, no, I called yesterday. It was the way we agreed on this. No, I'm sorry, sir. I don't know who you talked to, but there are no rooms available there. We have one way back here, stuck, off but that's a good room. Don't worry about it. You'll enjoy it. I said, no, I'm not going to enjoy it. I said, I want the room that I reserved. So I started getting hostile. I started grieving, as a matter of fact, right on the spot, in a sense. And so all of a sudden, this woman comes up and stands next to me, and she interrupts and starts talking to the woman about some question, and I'm irritated. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I was talking to this woman. This is a serious thing. I've just lost my room. And I want to say, I want the manager, and I want the manager now. And that's what I want to say, okay? I'm all getting worked up. You know the feeling? And so this woman is talking to the clerk, and I'm thinking, okay, now here's what I'm going to say. Okay, I'm going to get the manager. I'm going to go after these people, and I'm going to get that room. I don't know. Okay, so I'm just ready. And this woman finally stops, and she turns to me, and she says, excuse me, but are you Gary Smalley? The guy that does those loving relationship things on TV. I said, yeah, that's me. He said, well, I really enjoyed you and stuff like that. And then the clerk said, can I help you any further? I said, yeah, no, it was real nice. Because this woman stayed there. I wasn't able to grieve. I wasn't able to hassle. And I lose that opportunity. I can't do that on the phone anymore, or anything. So there's some things that I've been denied. But anyway. Anyway, this is just a real important session to go through point of grieving, because you'll see some of your knots starting to untie. Okay, next, very, very important point. In fact, when I did this next point, for me, it was like untying 5 knots at one time. Just poof, they just went off. And this next one is, anytime you start increasing your understanding of your offender as to why they would offend you, that begins to loosen and untie your knots. Just the understanding all by itself. Let me illustrate that. When I was really angry at this person, waking up in the morning, how can I get revenge? And I hope this bad thing happens to them, and they'll never succeed because this is probably... And I was grinding away, playing the old video in my head, right? Well, what happened is, as a counselor, this one person I was counseling came to me one day and said, hey, I've got this article that really describes me and helps me. It tries to help people like me understand how they can get better. Would you read it? And maybe you'll have a better understanding of me, and you could use some of the ideas to help me. I said, sure. So I took it home. I wasn't, that impressed with the whole thing. And I read it at night. And as I read it, I was amazed. It explained my offender to a T. First time in my life I finally understood my offender. I thought, so that's why this person was a slime bag to me. That's why this person offended me. That's why this person did these things to me. That makes all the sense in the world. No wonder they did this. See, as soon as you can say no wonder, if you find out your father's history and what he was treated like by his father or mother, and maybe what the grandfather, how they were treated, because that was all part of this healing process. As you find out why these people are the way they are, what happens is it starts to untie your own knots. And that's what happened to me. I mean, do you know that I literally had twinges inside of me of compassion for this person? And I didn't plan on this happening at all. But the moment I understood his pain, I thought, well, no wonder this person has done to me what they did. And it makes a lot of sense. It's just the understanding. Again, my son, Greg, is a counselor today, specializing in child therapy. He had like a 9-year-old girl in his office, hurting big time. Her father was not having a good relationship with her. Now, here's a 9-year-old girl. Greg is counseling her. He realizes that it's bigger than the problem. It goes beyond this little girl. It's a family system problem. And so he asks the father, will you come in and meet with us, with your daughter? He said, fine. He doesn't see the connection. He comes into the session, and during the conversation, Greg says to this little 9-year-old, what would you really like from your dad? And the little girl puts her head down and she says, what I would love from my daddy is just for once for him to tell me that he loves me. And the father immediately said, well, honey, you know I love you. Big tears roll up in her eyes, and she says, yeah, Daddy, but I would just like to hear it. And he starts crying, the father. And he says, honey, I can't say that. I never got it when I was growing up. I never heard my mommy and daddy ever tell me they love me. I've never heard anybody ever do this, so I don't even know how to say this to you. And I know I feel really awkward. I wish I could, but I can't. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I just can't say it. And she's crying and saying, Daddy, I wish you would. So my son says, why don't we practice right here? And he says, why don't you say it to her right now? He feels real awkward. You know, it's like falling into the water for the first time you can't swim. You know, you're just choking and splashing around. He said, all right. He reaches over and takes her hand. He says, honey, I want to say to you that I love you. And he just starts sobbing. The little girl's sobbing. And then Greg starts sobbing. So all three of them are crying. Okay? Well, as soon as that little girl heard that her daddy had never heard, I love you, it gave her understanding. She could understand, so that's why my dad can't say he loves me. Well, that makes sense. Daddy, you actually lived in a home like I live in. So you feel my pain. I mean, they can understand this. But Daddy was willing to say the things that he needed to say, even though it was difficult. That's the key. I mean, I didn't hear it from my mom and dad. I was in a meeting one time when we were writing out the first time we remember our father ever praising us. And I was thinking, okay. And I was thinking, we'll see, you know. And I couldn't think of one. I don't ever remember my father ever praising me. And I thought, well, this must be something inside of me that's affected me for sure. And because I never heard it. Well, was it easy for me to praise people? No, it wasn't. Did that block me from doing it forever? No. You can make a decision to do these things. And the more we do it, the easier it gets. And that's what this father learned. But you may have to have a support group, like a counselor, to help you say these things in front of a safe environment. I think probably one of the biggest experiences I ever had with understanding an offender was the time you and I flew to that big university where I was supposed to speak to the faculty and the administration and the students. Remember that? And we show up to this place, and the first group I'm to speak to is the faculty and the administration. So it's an austere, you know, meeting room and group, and it's kind of a serious group. And so they introduced me. I get up in front, you know, a formal setting, and I start speaking. About halfway through, I don't feel real comfortable, you know, during the whole thing because I'm trying to be funny, you know, and they're not really laughing, and I'm, you know, it's one of those things where you think, I can hardly wait for this to get over. That feeling, you know? Well, about halfway through, this woman stands up, real hostile, and she says, oh, this offends me. I can't hear any more of this. She storms out. I'm thinking, whoa. Is that offensive or what? Now, I was angry instantly that somebody would do that because it ruined my time. I mean, I had no desire to continue. I did. I stumbled through the rest of it. You know what I really wanted? I wanted the trap door to open up, just go, run out to our rent-a-car and get going. Get out of this place because it was so uncomfortable. Can you imagine what the other people must have felt? I was thinking that maybe everybody feels this way, but she was the only one brave enough to stand up and say, what an idiot we got here today. And, you know, I'm out of here. I mean, she did that to me. So after the session, I'm feeling really low. I'm feeling drained of energy. You know, my identity is spreading out of what I expected and what reality was. And so, but you know what I decided to do? I said, you know what, I'm going to face this head on. I'm going to go find out, why would a person be this rude and offensive and do this to me? There has to be something there. What do I suspect? There's nuts in this woman's life. She basically sprayed me out of her anger can. I knew that, but I thought, I'd like to know why and what's behind it. So I went to her office. I found out that she was the director of the night school division. and that she was also the leading person in her state for the women's movement. And she may have just been angry at men in general, I don't know. But I was thinking, whoa, should I really do this? So I said to the receptionist, can I see your boss for a couple of minutes, just for a short time? I'd just like to talk to her. So she comes back and says, no, she's not interested, she's real busy. I said, ask her one more time. I said, I won't take any more than 5 minutes. I just want to ask her a real important question. She goes back in and comes back and says, okay, she can give you 5 minutes and that's it. So I go in her room. She's hostile. She's looking at me like, what are you doing in here? Don't you, didn't you already receive enough abuse? You want more abuse? It was that look. And I sat down and I said, I want to thank you for what you did. And she went, yeah, right. You could see the expression, yeah, right. And I said, what I'd really love to ask is, I know you got my attention, as you can well imagine, and I would love to know what you saw that you reacted to so much, because I speak all over the country, and I would love to know what you saw, because maybe I'm doing it and other people aren't jumping up and leaving, and I would really like to know. She said, well, you did this and da-da-da-da. Within 3 or 4 minutes, she was tearing up and sharing with me how angry she was about one of the other administrators higher up the ladder than her. She was pouring out, I hate this person for this. And I'm sitting in there going, wow, I am seeing all these nuts, and they're almost like wrapping around my neck and going, and she was explaining all this stuff. And I was just listening, saying, bless your heart. Wow, you have to put up with that? Ooh, wow. I was just letting her vent. And then you know what she said to me? How many more times are you speaking on campus? I said, well, 2 more times. And she says, I'd like to go with you and I'll introduce you. I said, really? She said, yeah. Well, let's go. She was my buddy. Remember? I was in shock. I thought, just minutes ago, she couldn't stand me. All I did was listen and was compassionate and empathetic to the knots inside of her and trying to help her see some things she could do to resolve this in her own life. And we were buddies. And a dramatic example of what happens when somebody offends us, what we need to say, think of this for a second. All of us have been, how many have been offended by somebody you can remember right now that's vivid in your mind? Let's see your hands, okay? Whoa, okay? All right? I thought maybe just half. Okay. Okay, so we're all, okay, now think about this for a second. The people who offended you probably offended you out of their anger can. Correct? Okay? Now, you have allowed a person who was in darkness, distant, immature, weak health, all these things that this anger can person has, you've allowed that person to have this effect on you. Do we want to continue that? No. I don't. Why do I want to let that person's irresponsibility rob me? I want to eject the player and get it out of my life. And I know that this is a generalization and it's not all the people that offend us or that are tough on us are doing it out of an anger can. In fact, I had a woman gave me this. So I hesitated initially, but a woman gave me this. She asked me the question, how many women with PMS does it take to change a light bulb? She said this to me, okay, recently. And I said, I don't know. She said 3. And I said, 3, why? She said, it just does. Okay, now, I don't understand all of that, but, okay, but see, it's not always the anger can, right? It can be low sugar, it can be a lot of things. So we don't want to suspect just anger, but anyway. Okay. Next point for me, again, was like untying several knots at one time. The next one is to release the offender from getting even, revenge, from seeing harm happen to that person. You literally have to release the person. Do you know that the original language that defines the word forgiveness, it means to untie, release them. They're tied to you when you're bitter. You want to release that person from you, as well as even hoping that they get released in the future from whatever binds them up. But we have to first release them from ourselves. And we have to say it out loud, I think. Go through some kind of a little ceremony. Do it with somebody if you can, because it's even more powerful then. Even though the person that really, really offended me, I one time decided to try this point, and so I got alone by myself, gave me plenty of time to be. I'd heard that this can really cause some emotional release, but it also causes us to feel a lot of those emotions from the original offense. I got all by myself. In some cases, I even closed my eyes, and I said to myself, I'm going to relive those situations and actually say with my mouth, you're forgiven. So I went back in my mind, and I was like, there was like 3 people in the room. It was like, I was with that person in the real situation, but I was also observing us down there. So that's really a powerful way to role play, when you observe what's actually happening. So I was observing myself with this person, and I was going through the original offense, and I literally stopped this person in my mind and rehearsing this, and I said, I forgive you. I release you. I'm not responsible to you anymore. You're not responsible to me. I release you from this situation. It's over for us. I'm going to turn my life and go a different direction. I'm not going to hang on to this video camera anymore in my mind, this little tape. I'm getting it out. I'm pushing eject. I'm saying with my mouth, it's over. I release you. I forgive you. Are you listening? And as I did that, a lot of emotions. A couple hours of experience, because I had to go through several offenses. And a pretty emotional time. You know what I experienced about a week later? A lot of sense of release and freedom. Just from that experience. Because otherwise, what happens is, and I mentioned this before, but remember when I said, if you ever say, I will never be like you, you're almost automatically going to be like the person, because the thing that caused them to offend us was basically their anger can. And we're developing our own, so we will be just like that person. It consumes us. We either release them or it consumes us. And what's it do? It comes back and bites us. So we have no choice. We have to say, you're released. I'm not going to try to get revenge. It's over. If you go towards the revenge route, whoa, does it come back and bite. It's similar to the thing that showed up in the Denver newspaper about the pizza bandit. I don't know if you ever remember reading about that, where there was a guy robbing pizza delivery guys, and really frustrated the police and obviously the pizza company. And so they decided to put a undercover policeman in one of the pizza trucks with an attack dog. And they were going to nail this guy. And they went for 2 weeks hoping that this guy would attack the pizza delivery guy. Never did. They almost gave up. And then they got this suspicious call. They showed up. The pizza guy's going towards the house. All of a sudden, this robber comes out from behind the bush, holds him up with a gun, and says, give me the pizza and all your money, and we'll get back in the truck and get it, And as soon as the policeman sees it from the truck, he opens the door and says to the dog, attack! The dog goes roaring and grabs the pizza man and throws him to the ground and starts mauling the pizza man. The robber has his gun out, right? So starts firing at the policeman. So the policeman and the robber are having a gun battle while the pizza man is being mauled. So he can't get to him, all right? Now, does that not the kind of thing that happens to us many times with anger? We go after this thing with such focus, and then eventually what it does is it turns around and mauls us. It's not worth it. We've got to release the person. And I need to have a person as an example here, and I guarantee you that I will not embarrass you under any circumstances. Would you like to volunteer? I'll pay you $100 right on the spot if it embarrasses you. Okay, if it embarrasses you. Okay? All right. This is part of the area of releasing. Give me your first name. Joey. Okay, Joey. When we actually say, I release you, part of the release is saying, I don't expect anything from you anymore. I don't plan on you doing anything good for me, and I'm avoiding you so you can't do anything bad to me, but especially I don't plan on you doing anything good for me. See, when I was counseling Linda, she kept expecting her father to finally do something nice for her. Her father wasn't going to do anything nice to her. I couldn't get her to understand that. It was all part of keeping this little videotape playing in her head. Because someday my dad's going to tell me he loves me. Someday my dad's going to do something good for me. I still hug my dad. And I know he's going to hug me back someday and admit he's wrong and it's going to work out. It's going to be a fairy tale thing. No, it's not going to happen. But I couldn't get her to understand that. And the reason, Joy, the reason is because after she told me a lot about her dad, I knew that he had his own anger can. You can't expect nice things from people that have anger cans in them, so you've got to release them. You've got to say it's over. So here's what I'd like to have you do. Let's pretend we were in counseling together and that you were this girl, okay, let's say, okay? And I couldn't get her to understand it until I did this. And then she got it, okay? So you're Linda for just a second. And I'm saying to you, Joy, I got to communicate to you somehow that your dad's not going to do this. Oh, yeah, he will. I don't think he will, and there's a lot of reasons for it. So let's try something. Joy, what I'd like to have you do is walk over here and put your arms around that lamp and give it a big hug. And just give it a hug, okay? Just like that. Right, okay. Okay, and then you might say something to it like you love it, you know, and I promised you I wouldn't embarrass you, didn't I? Okay. All right, now you can go back to your seat over here, okay? See how simple that was? Nothing to it at all. Now, remember, you're Linda. Okay, now, I'm going to ask you this question. Linda, how long would it take, because we're going to wait around for this, how long is it going to take for that lamp to come back over here and hug you?
A long time.
A long time. Why won't it come back over here?
It's unable to.
It's unable to. And I said, Linda, your father is not capable of doing that because of his own conflicts. He doesn't see it. He's not capable of doing it. He's like the lamp. It's not going to happen. You've got to give it up. You've got to turn your life. Some of you have heard this analogy about the battleship that was heading, in sort of a foggy night, towards another light that the signalman saw and said, radioed to the captain of the ship saying, we're heading towards another ship. And he said, well, radio that ship and tell them to turn, 20 degrees to the left. And so he did. And the message came back and said, no, you turn 20 degrees to the left. And the captain said, you tell him I'm a captain. And I order him to turn 20 degrees to the left. The message came back and said, well, I'm a seaman, first class. And you tell your captain that he's to turn 20 degrees to the left. And the captain said, you tell him that I am a captain of a battleship. And I want him turning 20 degrees to the left. He said, and the message came back, you tell your captain, even though I have a lower rank, that I am situated in a lighthouse. And that either he turns his ship 20 degrees to the left, or he's history, and so are all of you. Okay? See, we're talking lighthouse here. It is kind of a lighthouse in a sense, okay? And you either turn your ship in another direction, or that person is going to continue to affect you and you're going to crash. We don't have any choice about forgiveness. We have to say, I am done. I am going to forgive this person and do what I have to do and leave this person here. Something good may happen in the future, fine, but I'm not going to expect it. It's the expectations that causes the problem. Okay. Next point. Oh, again for me, several knots for you, maybe one or more, but it's a major one for me. As soon as you can, you've got to treasure hunt the person's offense towards you. And remember, we had a whole video series session on this, about the importance of treasure hunting things that hurt us. And the reason that's a whole session, because it does untie knots. And it did with me. Now think of this. You can't hold anger and gratefulness at the same time. It's impossible. It doesn't work. You can't have the two coexisting. So the more grateful you get about what happened to you months or years ago, the anger drops off. So what I've done with everything that's ever caused me anger is to treasure hunt it. And the person that I was really angry the most towards, you know how many things this person gave me? Sensitivity towards people who are hurting in their marriage. Because I was hurting. Compassion for people. Opened up doors for me to write and to speak and to counsel. It was a great experience. All the good that came out of it. Do you think I can remain angry with that person? Not at all. I'm actually grateful. Now, do I want to go through the same kind of pain again that he produced? No. I'm not looking for pain. I don't want it any more than you do. But it already happened. It's in the past now. Now I'm treasure hunting it. It's like the 20-year-old college kid who came to me after a session where I was teaching this type of thing, and he said, well, I don't know about you, but I can't forgive my mother. And I spent 2 hours with him. And at the end of 2 hours, I said, have you ever considered thanking your mother for being the kind of mother she is? And he says, you know what's amazing? 2 hours ago, I hated my mother. Now I'm even thinking about thanking her for being my mom. That is amazing. Why is he thinking about thanking her? Because for 2 hours, he and I treasure hunted his mom. Why is he so sensitive today working with kids? The pain that he's experienced. That's where you get a lot of that. It's through pain. Why does he want to help kids anyway? Because of what happened to him. Why is he majoring this in college? Why is he going to be a camp director someday? All the things that he wanted to do in the future that were the most exciting to him, that he was the best at doing, all came from his mother's hard side on him. He said, why am I angry? Look at all the benefits I have from my mother treating me the way she did. I said, that's what I asked you initially. Why don't you thank your mother just for being your parent? You don't have to thank her for the junk she did to you. She'd really be confused if you did that. We're not saying that, quote, we should sin against people, so that they get better people. Even though that quote is theoretically true, love doesn't act that way. But when you've been hurt beyond your control, you can treasure hunt each of those, as we mentioned in an entire session, that I encourage you to, if this is the situation with you, if there's too much anger, look at that video again and do those things that we suggested where you can really treasure hunt. And you see, because it's all perspective, just as you look at it. I got a letter recently from a mother who said that her 4-year-old daughter was invited to be the flower girl at a wedding. They show up after the rehearsal and everything else at the wedding. It's about 20 minutes away from the wedding, and the little girl says, no, I'm not going to do this. And the mother says, honey, you've got to walk down the aisle when this music starts and just throw the pedals. She says, no, I don't want to do that. I'm too embarrassed. She was saying that in her little way. I'm not doing it. Stubborn. And the mother said, please, you don't want to wreck this wedding for this person. We're going to do this. And a woman at the back of the church said to the mom, why don't you walk with her? And so the mother walks with the little girl. She's dragging her down the aisle. And the mother's actually throwing the pedals. Okay? Very embarrassing for the mom. She gets down to the front, and the little girl won't go up on the platform. So she kneels down in front of the first row of seats and is directing her little girl, go up, honey, go up, go up. And so finally when the bride comes down, the little girl walks up with the bride. So now she's with her. So then she stands in between the minister and the bride. And she's mumbling to herself, But she wanders around the bride during the ceremony, stroking the dress of the bride, and as one of the trips around, the mother catches her eye and she says, get off the and the little girl goes, because everybody now knows it. And so the mother is mortified. She says, why did I do that? So the wedding ends. The mother wants to leave instantly. See, it's all perspective. Now here's what happens. The grandparents both come up to the mom and say, that was the sweetest thing we've ever seen in our life. Your little girl was so dear. She was like a little angel walking around our granddaughter and just rubbing her dress. We said it was just precious. Thank you. And the mother went, really? See, it's perspective. As soon as she saw the benefit, she wasn't upset with her daughter anymore. That's exactly what treasure hunting is. It's changing our perspective. And when we do, what happens is we don't feel that same anger. Well, here's another way. Write a letter, a love letter to your offender. Now, I'm not saying you have to mail it, but the researchers that analyze what's taking place when you write a letter to somebody who offended you, it's almost like, this is how they explain it, it's like your anger is released through the ink of the pen. There is a release by writing it out. As you write the words out and see them and objectify what actually happened, the knots just start falling off. Now, you may not feel it for a week or two, but you actually write the letter, and here's some suggestions of what you can actually write. Clarify in there the loss, what actually is making you angry. Talk about your feelings, how you're feeling about all this, what you plan to do about it. And then one of the best things is what you would like your offender to do, how you'd like them to respond. Linda did this to her father. It was a real risky thing to do because sometimes a sexually abusive father, if you confront them, will make it worse. They'll doubly offend you by their attitude and their response and their denial, and it can just become a mess. So we both recognize that this is the potential. But part of the healing in some person's life is actually confronting the person that caused the great offense and hoping that they'll respond in the right way, what her father did. When she finally wrote him and he called her, and he said, honey, I have waited for all these years to talk to you about this, but I never could. I couldn't admit it. It's been too painful for me. And he said, I have suffered for years. And when you told me in your letter that you have forgiven me, you have released me. And I am so grateful. There were tears. They got together and hugged. I mean, it was a tremendous healing for both of them. But does that always happen? No, it doesn't always happen. It's a big risk to do this type of thing. But what a healing thing that I saw with Linda. And when I saw Linda meet her boyfriend and get engaged, I was actually part of the wedding, and saw the happiness on this girl's face as she was released. See, we treasure hunted what her father did to her. And she came away realizing that her father, without realizing, because it's the offensive thing that happened to her, can literally bring some positive benefits if you treasure hunt. What she did. Much more sensitive. She's going to be very alert as a mother. Very loving person. Some of the most loving people on this earth are people who have been really, really hurt and who have forgiven. And now they know how other people feel, so they can reach out. Very, very effective. And that's exactly what Linda did. Another one that unties knots, and this is not an easy one. And I'm going to say that this is probably the hardest, and I'm going to say it's the last thing you'll probably do. I'm going to say that this doesn't come natural. This is a big act of your will. But this does cause release of knots, and it sure did in my life. What it is when you and I actually use our maturing love, because that's what we get when we've been offended, to figure out any way creatively that we can be involved in the healing of our offender. Now, I've got a lot. I talked to a college-age girl just a couple of months ago who had been raped in college, and she said, there is no way I will ever do that. I cannot be involved somehow in seeing my offender healed. I said, hey, I understand that. It may never come to you, and I sure, bless your heart. I mean, I'm not saying you should do this. I'm saying if you can come to the place where you have some compassion for your offender because of what you realize they have done or gone through, that's a great healing for you. And I know it's not easy, but for me, as I used to get choked up, and sometimes my chin would even quiver in compassion, tears over the people who had offended me, wow, I could see the release going. And feeling, see, I was really loving these people and didn't even understand initially why, because I was free to understand their pain. And I know this is not easy, and so I would understand that. It's kind of like this story. Husband and wife, they find out the husband has some serious illness. They go to the hospital, they take all the tests. Husband and wife are in the room. Doctor comes in and says to the wife, I need to see you alone. Talks to the wife alone and says, I'm sorry to say that your husband is seriously ill and I don't believe he has long to live. And she went, whoa, wow. Is there anything I can do? He says, well, we have been doing some experiments and it has been helping in some situations. And she said, what? He said, well, if you will cook him an unbelievable breakfast every morning in bed, colorful, creative, that gives them energy. It's amazing. If you do the same thing for lunch, unbelievable creativity for lunch, serving in bed. Unbelievable dinner, same way, very unique and different. It's amazing what it does. And then sex anytime he wants. Creative, just unbelievable. It does amazing things. She said, really? So she goes back to the room alone, walks in the room, shuts the door, and her husband says, what did the doctor say? She said, honey, I'm sorry. He says you're not going to live very long. Oh, gosh. It's too hard. Okay? Can't do that. It's too hard. Well, that's the same thing in hoping that our offender gets healed and being involved in any degree, even if it was praying for the offender, which is maybe the least we can do, that they would be released. As you do that, there's something about your own forgiveness, your own anger draining away. Well, okay, so what's this session about? Steps to release you from anger. What are the important things? Analyze what's happened, figure it out, objectify it, in other words, see it in paper so you know what to forgive. Say it out loud. I forgive you, I release you. Turn your life 20 degrees to the left, start sailing away. Don't expect this person to come back and hug you. They probably never will. It'd be great if they did, but it's much better for you not to expect it. That's all part of the forgiveness. Get involved in their healing, write that letter. These things all add up to releasing us. Now, I want to end with a real short story that is possible for any one of us to do, but it illustrates all of these things in one. I have a friend who played professional baseball. And at one point in his life, after he was playing, he realized one day, you know what? I really don't enjoy playing baseball as much as my father did. My father forced me, from the time I was this high, to play baseball. He was my coach, he was my inspiration, and I didn't even see it a lot of times. And you know what? Bottom line is, I am very angry with my dad for the way he raised me. You know how he came about knowing this? He went to that movie, Field of Dreams. He had no idea he was feeling this. So he goes to this movie with his wife, just to, he's in his 40s. He has just entertainment, right? He's sitting through the movie and he starts to cry. He starts to sob. And he thinks, what in the world is going on here? He doesn't understand it. Stays to the end of the movie and still crying. His wife is looking at him like, what is wrong with you? He's going through all the credits. He won't move. He's sitting there in the seat. She's saying, honey, the movie is over. Get a grip. And he says, I can't. I don't know what's wrong with me. And he sits there. After the movie stops, lights come on, everybody's gone. He's still sitting, talking to his wife. He's saying, I don't know what's going on to me, but this movie brought out within me all kinds of feelings about my dad. And he said, honey, I don't know if you understand this, and what do you think about it, but I'd like to go see my dad right away. And he said he's like early 80s. And she said, you want to do that? Fine. But he says, I really feel the need to do this. Called his mother that night, said, Mom, I'm going to fly up and see Dad. Make sure he's home tomorrow night because I'm going to do something with him. He gets up there. He says, Dad, we're going to go to a movie. He said, what? You've flown all the way up here to go to a movie? Yes, Dad, I want to go to this movie with you. He doesn't tell him anything about it. They go to the movie. They both sob all the way through the movie. At the end of the movie, they reconcile. The son forgives his dad. Now, I understand that because of this movie, thousands of fathers and sons, since this movie's been out, and you can rent it in the video stores, have visited this ball field in Iowa to clear up their relationship as father and son. They go there and do something, they play catch, but they catch up with the past and they clear up their relationship on that diamond. They actually charge a fee now for coming. There's been so many people show up at that place. In fact, if any of you have seen it, the guy makes a prophecy at the end by saying that there'll be thousands of people show up at this field. And you don't have to understand why you should build this ball field. Somehow, this is evoking father and son's emotions to clear up the relationship. I don't think you have to go all the way to Iowa. You may. But what I would urge you to do is face it. Say, I've got to forgive everyone that has been offending me. I've got to get into the process of being released and healed. So I can have my energy to love the people around me. And if you can, go to these people and see if it can be reconciled. It's not always going to be the most, greatest experience because they can react. But it may work out to the place where it's part of both of your healing. And I really urge it because you know what? As you know, and I know, that families that are so split and separated in our country need to come back into harmony. We need to say enough is enough and start reconciling with one another and forgiving one another and watch what's going to happen in our country when forgiveness spreads like a fire across this nation. It's going to happen. And I pray that you'll be right at the heart of that. Be the example. It's my urging and encouragement for you. Thank you. Forgiveness. I mean, why do we forgive? For their sake, for our sake. We both know that we're the ones that really benefit from forgiving. I mean, you may be coming to a place at times where you say, I'm not forgiving that person. You know, they don't deserve it. Well, it's really not for them that we forgive. It's for our relationships, for our quality of life. And that's why I wanted to give you several methods that you could use to drain this anger out of your life. Now remember that anger is kind of like a silent killer. It's kind of like a heart attack in a sense. I mean, if you don't know the symptoms of a heart attack, like left arm hurting or shortness of breath, you think, oh, it's no big deal, just let it go. But it's a silent killer. Well, that's what anger does. So I want you to realize that as you forgive and practice these things on a daily basis, because it's not something we want to do once a week or once a month. I mean, it's every day. Draining these things out, it will improve your relationships and your own quality of life.